Hello, good day. Streaming from Oslo, Irinihara again, connecting with you today for a short lecture about highly sensitive people, spiritual bias, and trauma work. And I put as a background an image from this beautiful Vigeland Parken. That is a nice park with beautiful statues and nature in the heart of Oslo in Norway. As I want to feel that we are still in autumn, not winter. We had some snow on Saturday, quite cold. I still need the green and light of summer, but yes, winter is approaching. And this topic I want to speak about today, it is something that I kept thinking about for several weeks. And it came to me also through different posts I see on Facebook or on YouTube or in different contexts I have access to, and also through interventions or lectures that many people do nowadays in the spiritual arena. It is quite wide and colorful and with many sorts of practices and theories and concepts. And what about this being highly sensitive? Because there are many people, spiritual people, thinking that being highly sensitive is a kind of mark of honor or something that only chosen people somehow that are able to develop their psychic abilities or that possess some special skills or sensitivity to the energies around or to other people and circumstances can have or can be named this way. And there are many kinds of definitions and even labels and abbreviations for types of highly sensitive people. They make me laugh because I think it's like, do we really need them? What does it mean? Many, for example, tarot readers or spiritual guides, that they like to use these acronyms, GNF, whatsoever. I don't know them and I really don't care. I want to bring to you the perspective of the therapist and the perspective of a person who thought for herself to be spiritual for many years and lately had a kind of awakening of the fact that many concepts and practices in the spiritual world that actually they are not so authentic, and they are just created to perpetuate survival strategies for those who are not able yet to connect with their own inner self, with their own world, and to understand better why certain states or skills are there, not as an exceptional endeavor or endowment, but as something that comes from deep trauma. It is curious sometimes when I reflect on what is happening in our world, how much this trauma concept comes back to me when I bring my own observations. 5 or 6 years ago, I was not aware of it. But then I started to look on all these aspects of what a trauma strategy means and what kind of trauma biography we can trace for ourselves once we start to work with this. It's extremely complex. It's not something that I could cover in one lecture. That is why I want to focus only on how we relate when we speak about trauma with what people call high sensitivity, hypersensitivity. It all relates to the body and the nervous system. And when we disconnect from ourselves, from who we are, we tend to go in a place, in a mindset, in a theoretical, etherical space, to call it like self, where we want to feel empowered, where we want to feel healed and happy and fulfilled, forgetting that there are things that still need to be taken in consideration, seen, and healed inside before we express ourselves in the world with all these nice words. And trauma, it means disconnection. Disconnection from the memory first, because most of the memories of traumatic events, they are forgotten at a certain point, especially those that happen in early childhood or even from conception to the birth act in the period of gestation and the womb of the mother. We don't have those memories. And if there are big traumas happening in this period, the child will get out in the outer world and will start to develop already with a big imprint that creates mechanisms, coping mechanisms, survival strategies to be able to cope with the pain, with the anger, with the frustration, the shame, all these heavy emotions that traumatic events bring inside the body and in the emotional body especially. And it makes me laugh to see so many people in the spiritual world not even aware what this means, but they feel very empowered and in right to say, oh, I've been through a lot, and that made me be a highly sensitive person, or whatsoever name or label you want to give. And that means that I'm different from other people, let's say normal people, and I should be praised for this label, because being different means that I have some qualities that others do not possess. And this is one of the biggest bias of the spiritual recognition of being a human being with a body and with a trauma biography. It doesn't make you spiritual, negating the fact that you carry big traumas inside. Some might be bigger, others smaller, but we all human beings, due to our own biography, the way life goes, we all go through some traumas at a certain point, sooner or later. And as I said, earlier it happens and bigger these traumas are, more impact they will have on ourselves, on our development as a human being, and in first place on our physical body. Many people living spirituality, they like to disconnect. And there are so many practices, from breath work to meditation to all sorts of readings and theories about soul and the soul journey and so on, that create more disconnection. And it is something extremely, extremely normal, nothing out of the world, to live disconnected. Is what it helps us cope with the effect of trauma on our body and on our memory. What is not so normal and common is actually to go and open the Pandora box and look inside yourself, meet yourself in all those dimensions and all those memories that are stuck in the body, in the emotion that block the energetic center of the body, and understand how they have been created and how they influenced us in our upbringing and in our life path creation. As the potential to be a happy and fulfilled and healthy human being is very big, but it is also very big, the potential to continue disconnected and thinking that we are special just because we are highly sensitive, because we are not. In my opinion, knowing my own trauma biography and working with other people in therapeutic setting, I would put the equal sign between highly sensitive people and highly traumatized people. And don't take it as an offense. It is the reality, the pure truth. And we should all become aware of it. We should all be able, once we accept it, to go beyond what it seems to be a little bit offensive and too much to accept, and investigate, search within, and find those answers that can show us that it is truth. Getting out of the bias that the spiritual world creates along centuries, because there are so many things that come from the past, and in modern times they have been adapted and reproposed to the Western world until they became a trend and very much acclaimed as, oh, very effective practices and concepts. And people want to believe in them because it's just fueling more and more their own survival mechanism, their own strategy they try to put in place to survive that pain and those emotions, to survive that is hidden because they don't remember them. So what is actually a high sensitive person, and why I say it's high traumatized? I'm not sure for other people, but I can speak from my own experience because I try to work with myself a lot and understand my own mechanism and processes. And I'm very much into demystifying many concepts and practices that they are considered a supreme value or core concepts for many people that guide many people in their own life and practice. When you are a high sensitive person, in a general way, it means, first of all, that your ability to feel, to sense in the body, in the psyche, is heightened to the point that sometimes it becomes painful to be in certain circumstances, environments, or with certain people that carry energies that you feel it's too much for you. You might actually describe this as an ability to absorb the emotions or the energies from the environment and from other people. In my specific case, what I've noticed since I started to work with women and men, and especially when I go in gatherings where many people come and they carry a lot of suppressed emotions and they're not even aware of what they carry inside, I suddenly become aware of those emotions. And it's almost like I become a mirror of their own emotions, of their own suppression, of their own strategy. And sometimes it feels too much for me, especially in moments where my nervous system is not sufficiently regulated to be able to accept or at least to confront those energies and those emotions and make my mind about what I'm doing with them. Because there are several ways where you can screen yourself and your nervous system against all these energies from the environment and accept in your field only what is useful, what doesn't affect you. I'm speaking about the nervous system and its self-regulating ability, because this is one of the skills that us people consider highly sensitive, or as I said, the better term for me would be highly traumatized, need to develop in life if you really want to have a normal life, because otherwise your senses will always be on alert, like for everything that is too much. The nervous system is the key for understanding the trauma mechanism in the body. Everything is interrelated in the body through the nerve that is called the vagus nerve, and that correlates many organs from the lower part of the body up to the head. And the three stages or ways a body reacts when it's affected by traumatic or shocking events are the fight, flee, fight, flight, or freeze. Is how the body responds when there is a threat. And these mechanisms develop in the body, and while they develop during the traumatic event or shock, if it happens in a very early stage of our life, when we didn't develop our understanding of the world and the interaction or the relation we can establish with the world, that mechanism, they will tend to be stuck and accumulate in the body along our life. And so when similar traumatic events will confront us later in our life, even in the adult life, we will be able to notice that we respond to this mechanism through freezing or congelating parts of our body, or even the entire body, or just dissociating, getting into the mind space, creating our own theories and beautiful ideas of how life and world should be as a way to escape of what is actually happening in the body. Or we tend to fight. We see in the other a threat to which we should respond with aggression and anger. We want to fight back what is coming to us, forgetting that in reality, in many times, many situations, people coming towards in an angry state or provoking us, triggering our senses, they are just a mirror of what we already carry inside, and it has not been yet resolved in terms of trauma mechanism and work. For me nowadays, it is quite common that in many situations I might attract women or people, other people that carry with them a long suppressed anger. And in many cases, they are not very much aware of what they carry and how much they suppress it. But then sometimes I can feel that suppression for them. And I can invite them to look inside themselves and discover what is there and why. But not all of them might be ready to understand this part. Being a highly sensitive person is nothing that you should claim as a precious gift or skill. There are many people that I see creating their own method and channeling all sorts of beings and energies because they consider themselves as being highly sensitive and able to be a receptacle or a holder, a container for something bigger and higher and mystical. In reality, it's just their body that is so sensitized because all that happened, that instead of tapping into the body and listening to the body and what the body wants to say when it expresses as being so sensitive, they disappear in a space where they become leaders and channels or psychic mediums, channeling something that is already inside, not out there. It can happen sometimes that through this heightened sensitivity of the body, we open the body to the morphogenetic field. And in this case, yes, we can connect to this morphogenetic field and start to see and perceive and move through our presence energies that are there to challenge us to understand that we are part of something bigger. But the biggest universe and complexity is just inside, not outside, or not in the outer space. So when I see these people channeling light beings or ascendant masters or whatsoever, galactic teams, I have a very clear understanding based on my own experience, an experience that is based again in many years and practices of healing my traumas. I have a very clear understanding that those people just channel themselves and their own universe. And this universe is so big as a reflection of the outer, of course, but it also has so much fantasy and imagination. Our psyche as human beings is extremely creative, even in terms of survival strategies. I have for myself, just to give an example of how creative the psyche is when it fragments through trauma, events and happenings. I have established since very young a strong connection with plants and trees. I see them as living beings, and they are, but I don't give them any more power to consider them creations or beings that can establish almost a personal connection like the spirit world. I work with shamanism and I like to give value to every being that is alive, including animals and plants and insects, birds. But I'm fully aware that they are not magical. The magic is what I can recognize inside and I can create through my own imagination. And in my case, as I was speaking about this bond that I can feel since very young with trees, this bond was an escape mechanism I have created along my prolonged staying in a hospital as a child. I was feeling alone, without my family, without parents, having to spend regularly 3-4 days for checkups for a health condition that later proved to not even be a disease. And in that space of loneliness, the trees that were there in front of me, I could look to them from the hospital window in the garden of the hospital. They look so beautiful and available to connect with me. My fantasy, my own imagination created this coping mechanism because it was difficult to stay in hospital. It created trauma and it impacted me quite badly along my life. But as you see, there is nothing miraculous. All these trees you see behind me, I see them as beautiful beings, colorful. They can transmute the CO2 into oxygen and allow us to breathe freely and to smell the freshness of their presence after a rainy day. But their spirit, that magical connection I used to create as a child, is inside me in my fairy tale world. It is not real. Instead, I see many people, especially in the shamanic world, they would venerate, and this also happens since mythological times, they would venerate the trees as being fantastic beings able to communicate and to create space for something sacred. But let's be aware and true to recognize that all this is mythology, and we create our own personalized mythology too, getting inspired from all these stories of the past and their symbols. Again, this is part of being a high sensitive. But as I said, it comes from trauma. And when you start to connect with these traumas and understand them and become aware and accept what happened in the past and how that past shaped your present consciousness, your present life, then you understand that it's about time to get out of that fantasy land and ground yourself through the body, through your own perception that all the answers, everything you search for outside is already inside yourself. And then getting out of the illusions that you created for yourself to be able to cope with that pain, it can be sometimes quite shaking and troublesome process, or maybe processes. And that is my invitation for all of you that you consider yourself a high sensitive person and you like to read all those books about the mysteries of the world and of life and our psychic abilities and how we can enhance them. Before you go again into the fantasy land and you explore this connection with outer beings, start to meet yourself in all those deeper layers and dimensions that you already carry inside. All those experiences that you might not even remember, your body remembers for sure. And you'll understand that you are an ordinary person, but you developed extraordinary capacity to cope and survive to something very deep and difficult. And it's not your coping mechanism and the complexity of this mechanism or the beauty of this fantasy or illusion you created about yourself that will bring you fulfillment and health. On the contrary, is an honest connection or reconnection to the wisdom and the experiences you had along your life, and seeing them without pink colored glasses, seeing them for what it is, and then integrating all these discoveries into a healthy identity, into a healthy I. I was that person, that child. I was abused. I had to go to this and that and that. And now I'm coming back to myself, to the real self, to the authentic self, accepting that being highly sensitive and having to go through all of that is nothing out of the world. It's the most common thing that happens to human beings. We can gather this way a new consciousness. We find our truth, we understand it, and we accept it, no matter how difficult it is. It's always very inviting and beautiful to stay there outside, spaced out and disconnected. The real connection requires maturity and truthfulness, and you cannot hide anymore because you just be between you, the false mask you created and you show to the world, and the inner self, the child that still lives inside and is still wounded and needs recognition and love and attention from you as an adult. This is all about no mystery, no sugarcoating, no fantasy. Just you, your body, your mind, your psyche, your heart, and all those memories that are hidden. This is my invitation for you today. Start reconnecting. With time, after a while, it will pay off. And you will say, I might be highly sensitive, but honestly, I prefer to be a normal person, fully aware of who I was and of who I still can become. It's all in one. If I become healthy, connected, aware, and honest with myself. And so it is. I wish you a wonderful day wherever you are, and see you for the